time is really hard work. You might not get a day off in weeks. When I knew that I needed to build a bulletproof buggy, I knew that I had to call in the experts, Al and Andrew.
Al, you got any ideas?
Yeah, got some ideas,
Oh, my cheeks are hurting.
That's about a 14-metre difference.
Lock her on. Oh, look at that.
If you're as good as that in the kitchen, you are marriage material.
Get back to work. With all the work that Terrain Tame is doing, I'm really hoping that this buggy will be as strong as it possibly can.
You're kind of lucky to be up at Mount Isa at this time of the year. It's due to some freak weather events. Apparently there's 140 creeks between this station and Mount Isa, and they haven't had water in them in donkey's years. So the country's quite green compared to what I was expecting. I thought it'd be a lot more barren than this.
Well, they tell me how fast this thing goes, but occasionally you got to pull up, I suppose, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. You know, going through creek crossings, down hills, cattle run out in front of you. You need to go rescue a bike rider from a bull. You know, brakes are pretty important.
Yeah, okay. So what are we going to do about that?
We're going to fix them.
Let's
Let's get into
We're a
it.
team.
Okay. You got a license?
It's not the Power Rangers. Oh, yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to do a simple brake test. We're just going to accelerate to 40k an hour because I'm not sure it's going to stop real good any faster than that.
Yeah,
It's pretty terrible. All right, so I'm hanging on. Really pins you back in the seat, doesn't it? In order to make the test as accurate as possible, we're going to do the brake test 3 times and average the distances. Well, we travelled an impressive distance before we stopped. We're just going to mark it. I'll just mark it at the, what do you reckon, in line with the front tyre there.
Good.
Rightio, let's get back to it. Go throw some new brake parts under it and see if we can make it pull up in a more impressive distance.
Sure.
Back at the station, it's all hands on deck. Changing the brakes is a pretty big job, but I'm confident we'll get it done today.
You want this on the axle or underneath?
Under the spring pack, please. Yeah. Like under the, yeah. All right, that should do it, I reckon.
With all the work that Al and Andrew are doing on this buggy for me, I'm really hoping that it's going to be as bulletproof as possible.
Are you undoing those wheels in a star pattern like you were telling me last time?
Absolutely.
Yeah, bet you're not.
What I tell you and what I do is 2 different things.
I quite like working with Uncle Alan, actually. I mean, the reality is I do all the work. And we don't always see eye to eye on how we're going to achieve something, but most of the time we do, and you always learn something anyway. It's good.
If you're ever buying a vehicle, I always check the chassis to see what the level of mud is. This is blocked up there, but in here, been in the water and left there for too long. It's the only way it can get full of mud like that.
Yeah, okay.
All right, well, you don't learn anything by watching, so I'll let you do this. What we're going to do is we're going to replace the rotors and the calipers and both sides, and eventually we'll get to the back as well.
Right.
So what we need to do first, caliper off, and then we can get this freewheeling hub assembly off.
It's great being able to learn how to put all these parts on with Al and Andrew, because then when I'm stuck out in the paddock, I might have a better idea on how to fix it.
If it's seized and it's been there a long time, it will twist the pipe as well. So you undo it, you go beautiful, and you're undoing it, and if you're not looking at it, you could actually be twisting the line apart and break the steel line off. Should be able to get the impact wrench in there, Jess.
Oh, it just won't fit.
Hang on a second, I'll try something out. Yeah, make some clearance. You might need to give it a bit of gentle persuasion. These are tapered cone, so to get them out,
Right.
pop out like that. Yeah, really. We'll put that on a bit of rag or something so we don't get that full of rubbish. Just lock up.
Ooh, it's heavier than I thought it would be.
Yeah. Rightio, so these are the rotors we're going to pop on. Slotted and drilled.
Shiny.
So a lot of the advantages of this sort of style is one for cooling, 2 it's also for getting the dust out once the pad wears, and also keeping dust from the road and rocks and things like that, helping eject it out. Yeah, it's much better than a normal rotor. All right, so I'll get you to whip the 2 bolts out that hold the rotor to the hub.
What do they say? If it moves and it shouldn't, use duct tape.
Oh,
If it shouldn't move and it should, use CRC.
yeah, something like that. Or a hammer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take a slightly different approach to this, I think. Anyone who's done this before can probably see I'm tackling it all wrong. Working in an old shed has its advantages, and I find a bit of old wood to prop up the hub. Al, you got any ideas?
Yeah, I got some ideas, all right.
Why don't you just knock the wheel studs out?
Well, every now and again, a student has to teach the teacher something, right?
Well, I'm so glad you took my suggestion. Can you show me how hard I'm supposed to do it?
When we got threads damaged, you just want to see where the thread is. Sometimes it's mashed up, so it's terrible and you've got to grind a lot off. But if it's only one little corner here, we've got a nut that actually screws onto we've checked it, it screws onto the other threads right, so there's nothing wrong with the nut. There's lots of ways you can do it. You can have a thread file, you can tap it, or we'll just grind that damaged bit off there. See how it's been hit? When we got it out, that's understandable. We're just going to grind that bit off. Probably got to go down so we pick up the base of the thread. See, we've actually gone we've gone below the base, just in case the base is swelled up and damaged. So what I'm doing, I'm going to use the nut as a die. Die is the sort of thing that just split a few places and you dress threads up or you improve threads, but I'll use the nut as a die because it's got some nice threads in there, and we'll just hammer like that a bit, and we'll actually be correcting those threads. And generally speaking, it will go in just a little bit further each time you do that.
Mechanics will use what's called a thread die to do this job, but a lot of home mechanics won't have their own set, so this is a great alternative.
Yeah, that was a really easy way to fix that, especially if you're out bush and you don't have the proper tools.
Next, we're installing all new brake hoses. So this end here goes up into there's a bracket on the rail.
Is that supposed to go all the way in?
No, it won't.
So I tighten it now. It's a bit fiddly when you can't see what you're doing.
Oh, too right it is. Now, generally, brake hoses last a very long time, but in this instance, we don't know the history of the vehicle, and we're choosing to change them as preventative maintenance. Oh, beautiful. We're just going to shove him back on. And once again, if you're reusing things, you've got to be very conscious of contamination. Rightio. Now, we haven't adjusted the wheel bearings or anything yet. We'll get to that in a minute.
Where have you been up to?
Where have you been?
Oh, I've been in the rafters keeping an eye on you because I've got to go a bit closer now because you're starting to the technical point. I enjoy working with Andrew. Same as normal. We have some spirited discussions. He's still got a lot of things to learn, but I like that he's spirited. Oh, and brake hose? You going to put a brake hose on it?
We've already done it. We've been busy. We've been busy while you've been off sleeping under a tree.
I know what's the way he works. It's up to date and different to me. Yeah, I was sleeping under a tree. I had a close eye on you. All right, so we're going to shove that together. They work well, really, don't they? They dry off quicker if you go through a river.
Yeah, they're a lot better than drums.
Is there anything you can do when you said they dry off quicker when you go through water? Obviously, that's what I'll be doing. Is there anything you can
put your left foot on the rest of your left foot on the brake pedal for
you can dry
that's a
500
good thing to
metres just to dry them out a bit.
See, with drums, you can, in some off-road things, you've got to have your foot on the brake uphill and downhill because you don't get the time to dry them out, but with discs, they'll dry out pretty quick.
Yeah.
So one other thing, aside from being a high-quality brand new caliper, we've also got these specialised brake pads. They're a ceramic brake pad. They're our Train Tamer brake pads. Now, these differ from your standard brake pads. They're a bit more aggressive. They really do apply a lot more braking force, but at the cost of accelerated rotor wear. But, for extreme situations or extreme applications, like mining and chasing bulls around paddocks, they're perfect because they'll give you excellent stopping power. Jess fits the brake calipers before we put the wheels back on. Then it's time to start on the rear brakes.
All right, so we're going to put some shoes and cylinder and some brake hoses on the back of this. There's the brake shoes. This is what I like, this Lemons kit here. This has got everything. It's got the little springs.
Will that fall out? What's that?
That's the wheel cylinder, hydraulic wheel cylinder. We're taking that off. Fluid goes in there. Bleed screw up there to get rid of the air because it's on top. And a couple of screws to hold it in the back plate. Keep as much dirt out of it as you can. See, that's a nice tight fit in that hole?
Yes.
That's what takes the strain of the braking.
Assembling a drum brake is a slower process than a disc brake, but soon enough, we're done. Unlike disc brakes, drum brakes require adjustment after assembly.
right, kiddo, that's the way to go. We're finished now. Just make sure that the shoes don't need knocking up a bit or down a bit.
They're pretty right.
See if there's any witness marks for the drum. Empty all that garbage out of the drum. Tip anything out of the drum, just in case there's something there. That's the shot.
How to spot a female mechanic. Or OCD.
Boy, they ought to be better now. Let's go for it and try it.
They couldn't be any worse.
No. Good
Crunch.
Once again, we run through the brake test 3 times, so we can use the average of the 3. That's about a 14 metre difference, that. It's fantastic.
That's enough to save a life, save my bull bar.
Enough to save your life.
There was an insane difference when installing the brakes. It went from barely anything when I was too scared to even use them to stopping on a dime.
The brakes the way they were, that's why we let you drive, because we wouldn't run into...
Thanks.
Look how far.
I'm expendable, is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely, we're all expendable, but you're more so. You're young. Still that, you young blokes annoying us.
Coming up on the next episode.
It's got wheel balance problem.
You'd think I'd be a bit worried with our swerving around the road, but by now I'm quite used to it.
But we can get it miles better.
So we're just going to punch out the outer races of the wheel bearings. Basically, this gasket is what keeps the grease and everything in the hub.
And just for fun, I'll grind this open and pull it apart. Stand back.
We're a long way from Alp if you hurt yourself.
Nothing ever happens to me.
Yeah, you don't get to his age without getting some kind of eccentricities.
Just to comb your beard.
Yeah.